1938 version, which, as I just mentioned, destroyed our environmental assessment regime. Specific references to continuing to fund SIA under SIA 2012 is offensive to any of us who understand environmental law. I look forward to an opportunity to continue later, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the honourable member will have 4 minutes remaining when debate resumes. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise now for a brief 60-second tribute to the people of British Columbia who stand united against the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain expansion. Earlier today, Mayor Gregor Robertson was here speaking in this place along with Chief Maureen Thomas of the Tsleil-Waututh First Nation, to Chief Ian Campbell, to Councillor Grant of Musqueam and Squamish First Nations. And I raise my hands to them. I'm honoured to represent the Coast Salish peoples of Saanich Gulf Islands and say Haishka for them being clear. But we need to understand in this place that this debate over pipelines must not pit Alberta against BC or Quebec against Alberta. We need to recognize in this place that the export of raw bitumen to other countries is not in our national interest. And our national interest lies in processing material here and saying no to pipelines.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend I had the pleasure of participating in the annual Bread and Honey Festival in Streetsville. Since its inception in 1973, the Bread and Honey Festival has celebrated commerce in the local community, originating in part by the flour mills. Having so many bee yards existing at the time, it was only natural to add honey. Even today, everyone enjoys bread that is specially baked by the local milling companies and generously coated with local honey. This weekend-long festival is filled with events and activities for all ages, kicked off by a parade through the main strip. I've attended this event for 31 years, this being my first as the Member of Parliament. It was especially nice seeing kids enjoying the festival as I did growing up. I'd like to thank the organizers and volunteers who made this year's Bread and Honey Festival possible and for keeping the local tradition alive. Thank you.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge one of my constituents, Joan Kinsit, who has worked tirelessly to improve the lives of seniors in Fort Nelson, British Columbia. Joan Kinsit has worked for the Northern Rockies Senior Society for over 7 years. Over those 7 years, she has been instrumental in the fundraising efforts for a supported housing facility in Fort Nelson, as well as the Seniors Transportation Program. Thanks to her hard work and dedication, and after years of fundraising, seniors in the Northern Rockies will soon have access to supportive housing. My staff and I always enjoy our conversations with Joan. She not only offers words of encouragement and support for the work we do here in Ottawa, but also has a genuine interest in our lives outside of this place. I ask all the members to join me in recognizing Joan Kinsit for her dedication to Fort Nelson seniors and to our Canadian community as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le Président, demain, le 8 juin, marque la Journée internationale des tumeurs cérébrales qui compte plus de 120 types.
Tomorrow, June 8th, is International Brain Tumor Day. There are over 120 types of brain tumors, all very different, which makes research complex and crucial. My mother, Providenza, fought courageously a brain tumor for over 15 years. She passed away in 2011, but her memory, her kindness, and her courage continue to be the strength that moves us forward.
Of our life, and I understand the effects of the neurological damages brain tumors have on the patient and their families. C'est pour cela que le 12
That is why on June 12th, I will be participating in the Brain Tumor March in Montreal to increase awareness and fundraise to make research progress to put an end to brain tumors. I urge all colleagues and those listening to participate in a march in their community. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, from coast to coast to coast, Canadians are encouraged that the government will finally be supporting the NDP's plan to make our electoral system a fair, inclusive process and a process based on cross-party collaboration. Just in the past few days, we've received thousands of emails, letters, tweets, and posts that Helen from Pooch Cove, Newfoundland wrote saying, and I quote, "This is exactly what Canadians have been hoping for from the Parliament we elected last October." And Jay from Chilliwack said, "Parties will," quote, have to collaborate to pick Canada's new voting system, and we will move forward with more trust in the consultation process. Ce n'est pas une victoire pour les...
This is not a victory for political parties. It's a victory for Canadians, the Canadians who elected us to this House to represent them.
A very long way from having a fair electoral system where every vote counts and every vote is equal. Yet today we take an important first step. This afternoon the House will vote to set this historic process in motion, and we will continually work to earn the trust and take guidance from Canadians as we move ahead.
The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to recognize Canada's generous donors to UNICEF and the work of UNICEF through its 128 Makani Youth Centres in Jordan. Jordan schools cannot accommodate everyone by a long shot. UNICEF Jordan works in partnership with government and civil society to reach the most marginalized and vulnerable children, providing education and psychosocial support services. I talked to many of these children when I visited a Manaki Center in Amman. The children love their teachers. They long to go to regular school. They play soccer. They dream of going to university. They feel safe and secure at the Makani Center. This year, the World Refugee Day campaign is focused on displaced persons. Ban Ki-moon has said, refugees are people like anyone else, like you and me. They led ordinary lives before they became displaced, and their biggest dream is to be able to live normally again. Together with all of you, I'd like to thank Canada's partners in addressing the global refugee crisis. Thank you.
Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nikolai.
Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago I was proud to announce the official opening of my new constituency office in Summerland, British Columbia. Now, one thing unique about my new office is that I'm sharing it with a BC Liberal MLA who also represents Summerland at the BC Legislative Assembly. As many members of Parliament will know, often citizens come into our offices only to discover they are seeking assistance on provincial issues. Providing more services in the same location can better serve our constituents, and also sharing some office expenses can create more efficiencies. And at the end of the day, we must always be mindful that there is only one taxpayer. And so far, I'm pleased to report to this House that the joint office is working well to provide increased services at a lower cost to citizens in my riding. I would also like to thank BC MLA Dan Ashton for supporting this initiative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member will have the debate.
Honourable member for Sudbury. Mr. Speaker, this is Environment Week. Our government knows that it is essential to protect the environment while ensuring economic growth. I'm proud to say that for 30 years already, my riding of Sudbury is the best example of that.
The sulfur-damaged landscape was chosen as a training ground for the crew of Apollo 17 as they prepared to go to the moon. Since then, we've planted more than 9 million trees, and our lunar landscape is now a huge green forest.
Thanks to a number of community partners who planted millions of trees, our lunar landscape is growing into a green forest.
It only stands to reason that the Citizens Climate Lobby, a grassroots organization that empowers Canadians to build a more livable planet, has chosen to establish its national office in our community. Tonight, I will host a reception with the Citizens Climate Lobby to support this organization in its efforts to dialogue with all parliamentarians. I'm proud of their good work and proud of all Sudburyans who thrive through community involvement or in their own private way to protect our environment, not just during this week, but all through the year. Bonne semaine de l'environnement à tous.
Happy Environment Week to all.
Rockville, Preston, Chiswick-Cook.
Merci, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today in the House to mark the 100th anniversary of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, which was formed in 1916 during the First World War and was almost completely composed of black Nova Scotians. At the time, there was no national policy on the enrollment of African Canadians in our armed forces. These decisions were left to individual commanding officers, meaning they were mostly excluded from service. Mr. Speaker, when they were allowed to serve, they had to sleep in their own camps and be segregated from recreation, medical services, and even detention. However, even in the face of this prejudice, these 300 brave individuals made up this battalion, which was based in Pictou, Nova Scotia, and the more than 1,500 African Canadian who fought abroad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon, Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After a 24-year absence from the Olympic Games, the Canadian men's volleyball team has qualified for Rio. Yes, at the final qualifying tournament in Japan, Canada beat China 3-2. In fact, they won the fifth set 15-9. It should be noted that the Canadian team rallied from down 3-1 to win the last two games. The Canadian team is led by Gavin Schmidt from Saskatoon. He scored 23 points in the come-from-behind win over China. Schmidt is a remarkable athlete. He's 6'10". But what makes this story even more remarkable, Mr. Speaker, Schmidt suffered a stress fracture in January, had to go surgery. But a quick recovery. 5 months later, he's on the court to lead Team Canada in the qualifying tournament. The volleyball team will head to Saskatoon later this month, but today it's a celebration for head coach Glenn HoC and the rest of the men's Olympic-bound volleyball team.
The honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, today I am honoured to extend a very warm welcome to the members of the Canadian Steel Producers Association as they partake in Day 2 of Steel Days on Parliament Hill. Its members' companies include Sault Ste. Marie, SR Steel, and Tenaris Algoma Tubes. Annually, together with their partners in this association, produce approximately 13 million tons of primary steel, as well as 1 million tons of steel pipe and products in other Canadian facilities. This important industry is very, very dear to the Canadian economy as they produce $14 billion. Also, the Canadian Steel Producers Association does other important work like employing 22,000 middle-class people across the nation. They indirectly employ and create 100,000 middle-class jobs as well. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to welcome this very important association to Parliament here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise in the House to recognize Armed Forces Day and the anniversary of D-Day. As a member of Parliament and a former Air Force officer, our country is proud of our military roots and the contribution we have made, not only to the liberation of Europe on the beaches of Normandy and Juno on June 6, 1944, but to peace and security around the world since then. Today, I'd like to offer our thanks to our military personnel for their service to Canada. Liberty and freedom are tenuous and often come at a high price. Whether at home or abroad, our armed forces stand ready to serve and to pay that price. So to recognize Armed Forces Day, let us honor the contributions of our armed forces and thank them for their service. Thank you.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, Salaam Alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan is the 9th month on the Islamic calendar. Muslims across the world approach this holiday with much devotion and sincerity. It is a time for thoughtfulness, spiritual reflection, and acts of kindness. Those who are physically able will fast from dusk to dawn as one of the 5 pillars of Islam, while devoting themselves to worship and prayers to Allah. Let this be a time for all Canadians, regardless of their cultural or religious background, to join with those celebrating Ramadan by remembering the less fortunate and celebrating act of kindness and charity. To everyone in Canada and around the world observing the holy month of Ramadan, I best you Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, in 1966, municipal leaders from Yellowknife, Fort Smith, Hay River, and Nunavut met to discuss the formation of an association to promote the exchange of information and to provide a united front for the realization of their mutual goals. Since then, the NBT Association of Communities' goal has remained the same, which is working together to achieve all that our communities want to be. For the past 50 years, municipal leaders across NBT have come together on numerous occasions to promote a strong voice for local governments. In 2016, as it celebrates its 50th anniversary, the NBT Association of Communities can proudly boast a membership of 33 or 100% of the communities in Northwest Territories. I've had the pleasure of working with the association from many sides, as the mayor, as an MLA, and now as a member of parliament. And I congratulate them on their work they do for their constituents and on celebrating their 50th anniversary. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to commemorate the passing of an exceptional Canadian and leader in Vancouver Kingsway, Peter Wolwind. It is impossible to overstate the legacy Peter has left for us all. He was instrumental in connecting people, beautifying our city, making our streets safe, and inspiring compassion for everyone in our community. Peter helped form the Dickens Community Crime Watch, now the Dickens Community Group, a diverse array of volunteers who work together to make their neighbourhood a better place to live and raise families. He pioneered the Dickens Listserv, a service that informs folks about local events and issues, and helped found the Cedar Cottage neighbourhood newspaper. Along with his partner Midori, he was a leader in planting on public spaces and brought the Vancouver Blooming Boulevard program to life. Peter helped establish the Windsor Street bicycle route, Windsor Art Way, and transformed Macaulay Park. Throughout all, he committed countless acts of kindness and generosity. Thank you, Peter, for being a visionary, for sharing your love of community, and sincere condolences to Midori and family. You will be missed, but never forgotten.
The honourable member for Brantford Brant.
Today is Tax Freedom Day, when families start working for themselves, not the government. We as Conservatives believe in empowering Canadians by putting more money back into their pockets to invest on what matters most to them. That's why we cut taxes over 180 times to their lowest level in half a century, and we put over $6,000 back into the pockets of the average Canadian family. That's real support for the middle class. Yes, Tax Freedom Day falls slightly earlier than 2015, but I know the Liberals wouldn't claim credit for a Conservative tax cut and a leap year. In 2005, under the old tax and spend Liberals, Tax Freedom Day wasn't until June the 26th. Under our new tax and spend Liberals, we're headed right back in that direction. Their plan saddles Canadians with $120 billion in new debt, and that's why Canadians know they'll be doing a lot less working for themselves and a lot more working to foot the bill for this liberal.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Monsieur le Président, I am proud to stand today and speak about an amazing internship program that finished last week. Since it was established in 1991, the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Program has seen students from across Ukraine have the opportunity to intern in parliamentary offices and experience firsthand the work we do here in the House of Commons. This year, 31 university students traveled from Ukraine to Canada and joined offices on both sides of the House, where they were exposed to our parliamentary procedures and democratic system used in Canada. Coming from diverse educational backgrounds, these students have now returned to Ukraine, where they will share knowledge and experience they have gained during their stay. Mr. Speaker, with more than 1.3 million Canadians tracing roots to Ukraine, it is easy to understand why programs such as the CUP are important to further strengthening the relationship between our two countries. I know in my own office, we were fortunate to be exposed to many new and interesting aspects of Ukrainian culture. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank personally all of the offices that were involved in this great program.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister said the issue of electoral reform is too complicated for Canadians to vote on. But he's got it completely backwards. Canadians are smart. They're smart enough to understand what their vote means, and they're smart enough to say yes or no. So will the Prime Minister finally get rid of this Liberals know best attitude, put his trust in Canadians, and commit to a referendum?
Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, trusting Canadians means trusting them with open consultations, not a closed question. It means it engages with Canadians on the kinds of values that underpin our electoral system, talking about complex, nuanced issues with Canadians so that they can better inform the decisions we take here in the House. On our side of the House, it's all about listening to and respecting Canadians, which can't be the same for when the previous government made exchanges to our electoral system.
Exactly. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, The Prime Minister doesn't understand our military. He naively withdrew our CF-18s from the Islamic State territory. He cut billions from national defense spending. Now the Prime Minister wants to choose a new model for the fighter jets. How can Canadians believe that he will choose the best fighter jet for our military when he doesn't even understand the value they bring to combat? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Canadians know full well that for 10 years the Conservatives completely missed the boat when it came to delivering to Canadians and the armed forces the equipment they needed. They clung to an aircraft that doesn't work, is far from working, and meanwhile our armed forces are in a situation where they cannot deliver on our commitments to NATO and NORAD. That's a problem that we inherited, Mr. Speaker, and that we will solve. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister doesn't understand our military and the dangerous world they operate in. He naively pulled our jets out of the fight against ISIS. Then the Liberals cut billions from defense spending. Now the Prime Minister is choosing what kind of fighter plane our pilots will fly. How can Canadians have any faith that he will pick the best plane for our men and women in uniform when he doesn't even understand the value they bring to a fight?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I find that a bit rich from the Conservatives who, when in government, completely botched their procurement process. They were unable to deliver the kinds of planes and indeed equipment that Canadians needed, that the Canadian forces needed, and instead continued to play politics when what Canadians needed were the right equipment at the right price. They left us a mess that we are going to fix, Mr. Speaker, because that's why Canadians elected us.
Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Softwood Lumber Agreement is now suffering from Liberal inaction. The former Liberal government had brought about a dispute with the U.S. that culminated in export tariffs of 37%, and our government brought that back down to 10%. That's the agreement we had in 2006. Can the Prime Minister assure us that he will negotiate an agreement that's good for Canada's softwood lumber industry? The Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, for years, the Conservative government did nothing about softwood lumber. So we restored good relations with the U.S. government. We worked unceasingly to solve this problem. We continue to work very hard on it because the former government didn't want to talk about softwood lumber, didn't want to talk about anything other than pipelines with the Americans, and that was very frustrating for the Americans and the Canadians. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. I invite the Prime Minister of rereading history and looking at what really happened with softwood lumber. The Liberals had completely abandoned regions such as mine before the 2006 agreement. We had an agreement that expired in October last. The former minister was working hard on it. The government of Quebec has asked the federal government to look at the way contracts are given in Quebec. Will the Prime Minister commit to having a new system that is beneficial for all of Quebec, all of Canada? All Canadians know full well, Mr. Speaker, that the former Conservative government had completely torpedoed our relations with the U.S. They didn't agree on anything. As we know, relations with the Americans are the most important international job Canada has. That's why we immediately sought to restore positive relations with the U.S. in order to be able to work on files that make a real difference in the lives of everyday people, be it softwood lumber, or innovation, whatever. That is what we're working for. The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, one of this country's most highly respected constitutional scholars stated that the medically assisted dying bill is unconstitutional. He added his voice to that of the Quebec Bar, the Alberta Court of Appeal, and the Ontario Superior Court. That means a lot of people are starting to say the same thing. Why will the Prime Minister force people who are suffering to fight in court? Why is he being so stubborn when he knows he's wrong? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Canadians expect that a government defend the rights and freedoms of Canadians, but that we also protect the most vulnerable. Medically assisted dying is an important step in the evolution of our society, and it's important that this be done properly. That's why we sought to strike a good balance and put forward conditions in a bill that is responsible so as to start protecting the rights and freedoms of Canadians while protecting the vulnerable. That's what we did. The Honourable Member for Outremont. That's a false problem, Mr. Speaker, because one can protect vulnerable persons and guarantee the rights of Canadians. The Supreme Court recognized that this right to medically assisted dying is protected by the Charter. This bill removes that right. It's that simple. For 10 years, we saw a Conservative government disregard human rights. Canadians were expecting more from the Liberals. How can the Prime Minister justify that his government is behaving exactly like the Conservatives? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, we had a Conservative government that refused to work on this important file despite the Supreme Court decision. We hit the road immediately and listened to Canadians' concerns about striking a balance between rights and freedoms and the protection of the most vulnerable. That's exactly what we delivered with this bill. We understand that this is a huge step for our society. This is something we have to do responsibly, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we're proud to have done this for Canada today. The Honourable Member for Outremont. They didn't act immediately. They waited till April to table the bill.
Unconstitutional. It would be challenged for years in the courts. The Carter family has said that they feel betrayed by this government, by this Prime Minister. Here in the House, the Prime Minister refused to accept amendments that would fix the bill and make it Charter compliant. Simple question. Is the Prime Minister going to accept those exact changes if they now come from the unelected Senate?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we do in every situation, we listen to suggestions and amendments from all parliamentarians, including from the Senate. We accepted a number of amendments at committee from opposition parties, and we continue to look forward to fulsome debates in an informed way on this extremely important issue. Canadians expected us to balance the rights of Canadians with the defence of the most vulnerable. That's exactly what we're doing. We look forward to seeing what suggestions the newly more independent and less partisan Senate has to make on this important piece of legislation.
For Outremont.
The Prime Minister has just revealed that he's playing political games with a bill that is about reducing suffering. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister talks of a middle ground, but since when do we compromise on human rights? Human rights which have been guaranteed by the Supreme Court when applying the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. For a party that loves to wrap itself in that charter, why is the Prime Minister pushing a bill which he knows goes against the Charter?
Honourable Prime Minister.
I'll let Canadians decide who's playing politics on this particular issue. We are focused on putting forward a significant change in Canadian society that both defends Canadians' rights and freedoms while protecting the most vulnerable. This is a big step in the course of our society, and this is one that we have made listening to Canadians, listening to opposition parties, in the full understanding that this step will be followed by others in the coming years. This step was an important one to get right, and that's exactly what Canadians expected of us and that we delivered.
I'm going to ask the member for Timmins James Bay to try to restrain himself. The honourable member for Selkirk Lake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have broken their promise for a fair and transparent competition to replace our CF-18s and are sole sourcing the Boeing Super Hornet instead. And maybe we just shouldn't be surprised. Boeing officials have met 10 times since February with senior political staff, including Public Works, National Defense, Industry, and in the PMO. Half of those meetings included the Defense Minister's senior policy advisor. So why have the Liberals, rigged the process to replace our fighter jets and allow Boeing to jump the queue?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated before, our government is committed to replacing our CF-18s because they're such long overdue. They should have been replaced a long time ago. And in terms of meeting officials from various companies, the honourable member should also note in our trip to Singapore, the CEO of Lockheed actually was with us at that conference, and I met with her and sat with her at that table as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have invented an imaginary capability gap. In 2014, Conservatives invested $400 million to upgrade our CF-18s. Lieutenant General Michael Hood, Commander of the Royal Canadian Air Force, has said that the CF-18's useful life has been extended to 2025 and they can do the job. Meanwhile, the Liberals have fabricated a false narrative to sole source the Super Hornet. Canadians deserve the truth. So who's telling the truth? The Royal Canadian Air Force or the Liberals?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we should have replaced the fighters long before, so we didn't even have to spend the hundreds of billions of dollars on extending the program there. And it's been close to 30 years that we're flying these airplanes. Our men and women deserve the right equipment, and our government's going to deliver on that. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the only void that exists is in government benches, because, Mr. Speaker, the government seems to be suffering from an imaginary disease. Among their many deficits, they seem to have a deficit of ability. On April 14th, General Hood, commander of the RCAF, stated in committee that the useful life of our CF-18s would come to an end in 2025. Can the minister confirm that this is just a maneuver to allow them to fulfill an election promise?
Mr. Speaker, yes, our 18 is going to be extended to 2025. And we do need to replace it. They should have been replaced a long time ago. We have to start the process soon. And because our fighters have been flying for some time, they should have been replaced. More capability gaps are being created, just like in the shipbuilding program as well. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the capability deficit was created in cooperation with lobbyists. Since last February, Boeing met 10 times with senior political staff. Over half of these meetings were with the Defence Minister's senior policy advisor. So many meetings in so little time with the same group doesn't pass the smell test. They seem to want to be transparent and open, but why did the government rig the process to replace our F-18s and give a gift to Boeing?
Our government is committed to replacing the CF-18s. As I stated, they should have been replaced a long time ago. Maybe the honourable member should have been asking questions when they were in government. And the capability gap that's in place in front of us. And in 2025, yes, the CF-18s will not be able to fly. And it's important that we move very quickly in fulfilling this capability gap. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, by appointing the Liberal House Leader as the Minister of Fisheries, Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, the Prime Minister has placed his part-time minister into a precarious position. The minister is in a conflict of interest whenever he's dealing with the Irving family. They have numerous fisheries interests in Atlantic Canada, and Irving Shipyards is a key supplier to the Canadian Coast Guard. Why did the Prime Minister put his part-time Minister of Fisheries into a full-time conflict of interest?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect governments and ministers to act at the highest ethical standards. That's exactly, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what every minister of this government has done. Within hours of the Prime Minister asking me to assume these responsibilities, I proactively reached out to the Ethics Commissioner. I asked for her advice as to what measures could be put in place to ensure that there is no conflict of interest, nor will there be an appearance of a conflict of interest. And, Mr. Speaker, I will be following her advice at every moment, as I always have. Thank you.
Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the part-time Minister of Fisheries has an admitted conflict of interest whenever it comes to the Irving family in New Brunswick. The Irvings have interests in fisheries habitat work, are involved in the Atlantic Salmon Federation and the Minister's Advisory Panel on Atlantic Salmon. Irving Shipyards are also an important Coast Guard supplier. When will the Prime Minister replace this part-time Minister of Fisheries with someone who can actually work on all the files?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, I wish the member opposite would in fact ask questions in the fisheries portfolio that speak to the important economic interest that this department represents from coast to coast to coast in Canada, instead of fabricating and inventing conflicts of interest where none exist, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Is it just me, but when it comes to the purchase of fighter jets, it seems to be Groundhog Day. After having criticized the Conservatives for buying F-35s without a call for tender, the Liberals are doing the same thing to replace our aging F-18s. They want to buy Super Hornets. And what a surprise, there will be no call for tender. Why do the Liberals look like the Conservatives? Why are they doing the same thing as the preceding government? Is there a pilot on this plane?
Defense.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated earlier to the honourable member, we are committed to replacing our CF-18s, and we will do our due diligence to do so. There's a capability gap that was created by the previous government, and we're going to make sure that we will fill this gap. Thank you.
Honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich Sooke.
Mr. Speaker, everyone agrees we need to replace the F-18s, but sole source procurement is costly, bad for accountability, and often ends up taking even longer to deliver the equipment we need. In opposition, Liberals complained about the Conservatives when they sole source procurement for the F-35s. Instead, they promised Canadians an open, transparent competition to replace the F-18s. So why are the Liberals now doing an about-face, breaking their promise, and behaving just as badly as the Conservatives on procuring fighter jets?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I also stated in the past, even though we're launching a defence review, that the replacement of our fighters and the national shipbuilding strategy is going to be going on a separate path. And that's what we've been doing. We're working very hard on that. We're doing all the thorough analysis. And when all that work is done, we'll be making the announcement for that. Thank you.
Honourable member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, since taking office, the Prime Minister has repeatedly contradicted his minister's hints that a referendum might be okay. Yesterday, his objection was, and I quote, "The process is more complex than the yes or no of a referendum." Now, I promised myself that I wouldn't raise quantum computing or one-arm planks in question period, but facts are facts, and in this universe, the decision whether or not to endorse a new voting system that his government will propose really is a binary decision, yes or no. So based on this new information, will the Prime Minister now agree to hold a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, today is a great day. I'm looking forward to the vote following question period, where we all put our confidence in a parliamentary committee made up of all parties, whose responsibility it is to reach out to all our constituents and bring their voices and their values into the conversation about electoral reform. I look forward to this cooperative and collaborative style of governance for many years to come.
Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's latest excuse to deny Canadians the final say in a new voting system from just earlier in this question period is, quote, "We need open consultations, not a closed question." This, of course, completely contradicts this minister who yesterday said consultations are only step one of a three-stage process. So at some point, when stages 1 and 2 are done, a closed question will be appropriate. Something like this: should election 2019 take place under the voting system proposed by the government? Yes or no? Isn't that, Mr. Speaker, a reasonable question?
Wow. Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, as always, we remain open and receptive to respectful and reasonable arguments. Today, we take step 1 of a long journey for which we are all responsible for, to ensure that as we move forward towards modernizing our electoral system and our democratic institutions, the voices of our constituents are included in our decision-making process. Let's focus on step 1, Mr. Speaker, one step at a time.
Honourable member for Richemont-Tabasca. Mr. Speaker, in 2012, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, father of the Referendum Clarity Act, felt that holding a referendum before enshrining any amendment to our electoral system absolutely necessary. He said, and I quote, precedent makes holding a referendum necessary in Canada. Changing the voting support would require popular support. That's also the opinion of 3/4 of the population. So, Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Democratic Institutions tell us what she told the Minister of Foreign Affairs behind closed doors for him to come back on his word?
Mr. Speaker, the process of electoral reform requires the attention and the care of all members in this House. Today, we will be voting on establishing an all-party committee whose responsibility it is to reach out to our constituents, particularly those who have not been included in this conversation in the past, to make sure that the process and the outcome is one that makes sense for all of us. Let's focus on the work of this committee. There's a lot riding on this. We are all counting on them to do this work, Mr. Speaker, and I'm looking forward to the vote today.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it seems like the Minister of Democratic Institutions can't even keep her talking points straight for a single answer. She's told the House that she wants to hear from Canadians, while in the same answer stating that politicians should be making the decision. So which is it, Mr. Speaker? Politicians making the decision, or will she actually drop the talking points and leave this decision directly in the hands of Canadians through a referendum?
Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I have no notes at my disposal, but let us review what we are here to do. Canadians have elected us to come to this place and to represent them with dignity and with full cooperation. That's what we're doing today, Mr. Speaker. A committee will come together made up of all parliamentarians to reach out to Canadians and to hear from them first what values and what aspirations they have for their electoral system. Let's recognize our responsibility to do this work right, Mr. Speaker. And once again, I'm really looking forward to the vote.
Now, member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, although most Canadians are law-abiding, today we learned that KPMG has another service for its wealthy clients. They recommended a tax avoidance scheme to help clients dodge divorce settlements or spousal support, while paying less tax, of course, at the same time. It's shameful. How can the Liberals go on protecting KPMG? When will the minister prosecute not only the millionaire tax cheats, but more importantly, KPMG, the inventor of this unscrupulous tax avoidance scheme? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, Canadians in the middle class pay their fair share of taxes, but some individuals, wealthier individuals, avoid paying their fair share, and that's unacceptable. It has to change. The agency is investigating taxpayers identified under this KPMG scheme, and we've increased funding with our latest budget for investigation and audit to try to crack down on this type of scheme that the rich are using. I would encourage my colleague to be careful because this matter is before the courts, and I would remind all Canadians that no one can avoid their obligations.
Mr. Speaker, another day, another scandal involving KPMG. Yep. It appears it wasn't enough for them to just advise clients on how to evade paying taxes. Now they've been caught devising schemes so clients could dodge their support, divorce, or alimony obligations. Just how many more scandals do we need before this government finally launches a full investigation into the actions of KPMG?
Ministre du Revenu National.
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I need to remind our colleagues opposite that KPMG's schemes were condemned by CRA. Our government has undertaken to fight tax avoidance and evasion. We will keep that promise with historic investments of $440 million. We are committed to making the tax system more fair. That's what we promised, and that is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The men and women of the Canadian Coast Guard work hard to protect Canadians and the bodies of waters from coast to coast to coast. I recently had the pleasure of taking part in an announcement in Sydney in regards to the Coast Guard College. Can the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Coast Guard update us what is being done to make sure the college in Westmount has the resources and facilities it needs to continue producing qualified personnel?
Well, Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my outstanding colleague from Sydney, Victoria, for his strong support of the Canadian Coast Guard. The Canadian Coast Guard in Sydney has been a world leader in the field of maritime studies for over 50 years. The member on our behalf announced $32 million on the weekend for a cleaner, greener college. These investments will reduce the facility's energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions by over 20%. The college is a top-notch facility, Mr. Speaker, an example to other countries, and we're very proud of the work being done there.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has world-class assessment, consultation, and standards for energy projects. Unfortunately, the Liberals and some anti-energy mayors don't seem to have figured that out yet. The Liberals create more complications and uncertainty by adding an extra layer at the end of the independent science-based review process. Canadians need pipelines. These unnecessary delays do not help. Will the Liberals stop interfering and leave evidence-based decision-making to the experts?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I had the pleasure this morning to meet with a mayor of a major Canadian city, Vancouver. I have also heard from the mayors of other Canadian cities who hold a different view on pipelines and major energy projects. So the sensible thing to do, I think, Mr. Speaker, is to establish an independent panel of experts from Western Canada to talk to mayors and others who have an opinion, after which the government will decide what it believes to be in the national interest.
For Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are making upstream emissions a condition of pipeline approval. No other major infrastructure is held to the same bar. Certainly not big city rail, and foreign oil imports aren't either. Provinces already regulate upstream emissions. Canada produces the most socially and environmentally responsible oil and gas in the world. When will the Liberals stop blocking Canadian energy?
Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the previous government, we believe that the environment and the economy go together. I was very proud to stand with the Minister of Natural Resources where we announced interim principles that will rebuild the trust necessary so that we can get resources to market in a sustainable way in the 21st century. That also includes taking into account greenhouse gas emissions, because we need to do our part to tackle climate change. That's the right thing to do. That's the thing to do for our children, and it makes economic sense.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, steelworkers are excited with the job security that comes with over 1,100 kilometres of high-grade steel for the Northern Gateway pipeline. Thank goodness for Energy East, its 4,600 kilometres of steel pipe and the 14,000 construction jobs that come with it. But wait, the Liberals voted against Energy East and the Prime Minister killed Northern Gateway. Why are the Liberals saying no to building new pipelines and tens of thousands of high-paying jobs?
The Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's colleague stood up in his place in the House and wanted the government to approve a pipeline project that had not yet been installed with the regulator. So he believed that the responsible thing for a government to do is to assess a project before a single Canadian had had the opportunity to express a point of view. We think a better idea is to have a transparent process with predictable timelines and ways in which Canadians can let government know what they think is in the national interest, after which the government will decide.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's steel industry provides 22,000 direct jobs with an average salary of $75,000 per year. Another 100,000 indirect jobs are associated with the industry. According to the Canadian Steel Producers Association, the value chain stretches all the way back to eastern Canada, to where iron ore is mined in Quebec and Labrador before being forged into primary steel forms in Ontario. Why are the Liberals killing jobs in our steel mills, mines, and factories across Canada that benefit from new pipelines?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we understand that 20% of the gross domestic product of Canada is in the natural resource sector. We understand that prosperity for Western Canadians, and indeed right across the country, depends on responsible and sustainable natural resource development. The government understands that we have to protect the environment and create jobs for a prosperous future for Canada, and that's what we intend to do.
The honourable member for Laurier Sainte Marie. Mr. Speaker, World Refugees Day is approaching, and the migrant crisis in Europe is only getting worse. We all remember young Alan Kurdi, whose photo was seen around the world. But the dramatic situations continue to unfold every day. Almost 2,500 men, women, and children have died in similar fashion. The entire international community has to step up its efforts. How is Canada going to do more? The Honourable Minister of International Cooperation. The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Oh, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I am proud of what this government has done to help refugees. We admitted 4 times more than the previous government, over 25,000 Syrian refugees, for a total of 144,000. 99% of those refugees have found housing. We've made a lot of progress in terms of language training and jobs, so I'm proud of what we've accomplished.
By the minister's own admission, language is key to Syrian refugee success. Almir Al-Hadawi has been here for almost a year, and he is still waiting for an ESL class. Thousands of refugees across the country have the same problem. Vancouver Community College have over 800 people on their wait list. They were forced to cancel classes because of an 8.5% funding cut from the federal government. How can the minister expect refugees to join the workforce if they can't even access language training?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, we have said, and I will say again, language training is key to success. We have committed $600 million to resettlement in 2016-17, an additional $37 million for Syrian refugees. There has been no cut. There is a 3-year rolling average where provinces who receive more get more, provinces less get less. That is fair, and in addition, there are millions more dollars to accommodate language training for Syrian refugees.
Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Speaker, if there's been no cut to the Vancouver Community College, why have they been forced to cancel language training services for over 220 immigrants and refugees? That's shameful. Yesterday, when the minister stood here and glibly claimed that he had a plan to address language training, was he looking at these cuts, or was he just planning his next photo op?
Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, if the government wanted to send somebody somewhere for a photo op, I suspect there are people in this aisle they'd probably send before they sent me.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
That's good. No answer.
While the people across the aisle here, Mr. Speaker, laugh at something like this, we have refugees in front of committee who are saying that they are isolated, and you're laughing right now, too. This is not a laughing matter. The fact that the government has not provided language training for refugees is shameful. When are they going to help the Calgary Board of Education? When are they going to help some of these agencies that cannot provide these services? They've spent over $1 billion and they haven't got the job done, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill knows that members on all sides were laughing at the minister's self-deprecating joke. The Honourable Minister of Immigration has the floor. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we will put to one side the reason why people were laughing. I think it was perhaps because they thought I was funny. But in answer to your question, we do not consider anything to do with our resources for refugees to be amusing. I have mentioned just a minute ago that we have committed $600 million to settlement for refugees in 2016-17 and an additional $37 million for Syrian refugees. And the language training is important, and we have committed the funding for that language training to occur.
The Honourable Member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, having grown up in government housing as part of an immigrant family, I know how generous Canadians can be. In my riding, St. Andrew's Church has raised thousands of dollars to sponsor Syrian refugees. They rented an apartment, arranged a phone plan, daycare spaces, and groceries for a year. But because of Liberal mismanagement, this family has not been processed. They've had to release the apartment, and thousands of dollars has been wasted. Will the minister apologize to refugees across this country or just use them shamelessly in more photo ops?
The Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I've already commented on photo ops, but the general point is that because of the overwhelming generosity of Canadians, I am probably the only immigration minister in the world whose main challenge it is to bring refugees into this country quickly enough to satisfy the immense demand for Canadians to support them. So this is a very good thing. It reflects the generosity of our country. But at the same time, I have committed to bring in all of those Syrian refugees whose applications were submitted before March 31st of this year. And we have committed additional staff.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Francophone communities all across the country have always contributed to the culture and history of Canada, but the Francophone Significant Benefit Immigration Program, started in 2012, was scrapped after only 2 years. Francophone immigration is important in many regions, like Madawaska and Restigouche. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship tell us what steps are being taken to encourage Francophone immigration to Canada? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. I'd like to thank my colleague for his good question. Supporting Francophone immigration is a priority, both for our government and for myself. I'm very proud to say that we will be setting up an enhanced version of the program. The new program will facilitate the immigration of Francophone workers and will bolster the vitality of Francophone minority language communities.
Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Indigenous Affairs Minister said she knew exactly how First Nations feel about transparency. But a member of the Odanak Nation said, without the Transparency Act, it's not difficult for First Nations to get information about how their money is spent. It's impossible. Beverly Brown of Squamish First Nation said the government would be negligent if they don't enforce the act. Will the minister tell these individuals why they don't deserve easily available information like all other Canadians?
The Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, everyone, including First Nations government, want increased transparency and accountability. But we will achieve that in partnership with the First Nations leadership and organizations. We know that top-down solutions do not work. In the meantime, you know, or the member knows, that First Nations governments will continue their long-standing reporting of audited statements to our department, including chiefs and councillors' salaries, to the department, and any First Nations member can get that information from our department.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner of Official Languages tabled a damning report on Air Canada today. Air Canada has been a true delinquent for 50 or 45 years when it comes to official languages. After hundreds of complaints, audits, and court cases, the Commissioner still gives Air Canada a failing grade. Nothing seems to work. It'll take new legislation to truly change the situation. Will the Liberals undertake today to do something to solve the problem once and for all? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the enforcement of the Official Languages Act is a priority for this government. It goes without saying that Air Canada must comply with its obligations under the Official Languages Act. It's unacceptable for shortcomings that have persisted for years to still remain unsolved. Canadians are entitled to their services. I'll be working with the Transport Minister to ensure that all the recommendations are taken into account.
Speaker, in my riding of Davenport, the residents are always seeking alternative ways to get around that is affordable,
that avoids congested streets, and that minimizes their environmental footprint. More bike paths would move residents across our riding and connect them to public transit and the downtown core. Bike paths are cheaper infrastructure investments relative to other modes of transport. Can the Minister of Infrastructure inform the House on the government's initiatives in regards to cycling and public transportation investments for the people in Davenport?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
I would like to recognize the Honourable Member for Davenport for enthusiasm on this topic. Our government is investing $60 billion over the next 10 years in public transit, green and social infrastructure. And the City of Toronto will receive $840 million in Phase 1, which can include active transportation as we currently develop our second term Phase 2 long-term plan, Mr. Speaker. Bike paths can also be funded through existing programs such as gas tax fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, countless Liberals have defended the $1 million the infrastructure minister spent on Sky Palace 2.0. The average Canadian household only spends a couple $1,000s on furniture. The Liberals are so out of touch with everyday Canadians that the minister spent $500,000 alone on furniture for one office. Mr. Speaker, when will these Liberals realize the money they're blowing is taxpayer money and not their own personal entitlement funds?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, before November 4th, 2015, Infrastructure Canada did not have a dedicated standalone minister's office. We didn't have a standalone DM's office, and we didn't have a space for our staff members. The expenditures that member is referring to were to provide office space for the minister, for the deputy minister, and a space for all of our staff members, Mr. Speaker, as well as to consolidate them on one floor. The department follow all the Treasury Board procurement guidelines. All contracts over $10,000 have been proactively disclosed.
The honourable member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, over 200 Quebec farmers are still waiting for foreign workers to arrive for the harvest. They are already short 1,000 workers. In my riding alone, the Riopel Brothers family farm has already lost over $5,000 worth of crops. And they're not alone. Although the applications were made in November, the visas apparently won't be issued until mid-June. There's no excuse for that, except for incompetence. Does the Agriculture Minister know what it means to take action? Will he stop working in silos and see to it that the workers are in the fields by the end of the week? The Honourable Agriculture Minister. Immigration Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware there's a problem with those agricultural workers, and my department is working very hard on that. Today I was told that those workers would be here by June 25th, if not sooner, and I think that will be on time for the work. Now, member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner of Official Languages has found that Air Canada, built with our tax dollars, is flouting its legal obligation to provide services in French. No surprise, Air Canada has taken first place on the honor roll of Canadian institutions that disrespect francophones for 45 years. It's yet another example of Canada's failed official languages policy. Will the Heritage Minister require Air Canada to comply with the Act, or is she going to let the company scoff at Quebecers like the Transport Minister has done for Avios workers? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to reassure my colleague about the importance that this government places on our two official languages and the enforcement of the Act. Obviously, the Official Languages Act is a priority for this government, so it goes without saying that Air Canada has to comply with the Act, and the status quo is unacceptable. That is why I'm working with the Minister of Transport on this issue to make sure that the Official Language Commissioner's recommendations are studied, and hopefully the Official Languages Committee will also play a role in that. Thank you.
One moment. I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Josef Saller, President of the Federal Council of the Republic of Austria. The Honourable Government House Leader is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, yes, perhaps I hope you could explain to the House what would be the appropriate rules in terms of recognizing people in the gallery. Let's say, for example, Mr. Speaker, a former Premier of Nova Scotia were in the gallery today, former Premier Gerald Regan. Would it be appropriate for the Chair to recognize a former Premier in the gallery?
Well, it's a little late now, isn't it? I suggest the honourable member check with the clerk or with my office about the guidelines for such things in future. It being 3:05 p.m.,
The honourable member for Richmond Athabasca has a point of order. I have two very important documents here in both official languages. I would like to table a document on the importance of referendums and in terms of changing the electoral system by any government.